Welcome back to the Postpartum Plan podcast. This podcast is designed to support and empower you through postpartum. Whether you're expecting, in the early postpartum days, or beyond, this space is for you. I'm your host, Madison Fugere, a dedicated postpartum doula and pediatric sleep consultant, striving to help parents feel confident and supported in their parenting journey. Each week, I'm sharing practical tips and expert advice to help you navigate all the postpartum things with confidence. Well, as much confidence as you can. Let's embark on this journey together, making your parenthood as serene and supportive as possible. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the podcast. I am excited to chat with you guys today. I am here solo because I had a realization that I didn't have an episode lined up for this weekend. So here we are. Sorry if I've got a bit of a raspy voice. It is early in the morning here today. I am curled up in my office, holding my mic in hand with a fuzzy blanket in my chair, sitting like, I don't know, if you guys are like me, you are unable to sit in a chair like a proper human being. So my feet are like curled up in me. It's freezing cold in my house because we left the windows open and it's been cold here in Massachusetts. So anyways, all of that to say, I'm excited to have like a bit of a convo with you guys today. I, like I said, realized that I didn't have an episode lined up, which is totally my bad. But I've got a couple that I'm recording in the next few weeks. So you guys are going to have some good ones for October. So keep your eyes peeled and let me know when you tune in. Oh, my phone isn't on Do Not Disturb. There we go. Anyways, so I was thinking about what topic I was going to talk about. And I really thought about how I've talked about postpartum stuff. I feel like I've had plenty of guests on about sleep, but I've yet to talk about my prior nanny and daycare experience. And so I thought we could dive into childcare options today. And hopefully it won't be too boring of an episode. I'm going to try and keep it pretty quick. So I did some super basic research just to have a bit more information from the Google. But I'm also going to share a lot of my own experience and input, and we will dive into that. Let's talk childcare, the dreaded childcare, right? It is a topic that I feel like every parent dives into, right? Unless you end up deciding to stay home, you are figuring out a way to get your child support. So we're going to go over a couple options today. We're going to go over nannies. We're going to go over nanny shares. And we're also going to talk about the difference between, nannying and babysitting. We're going to talk about daycare options in a commercial daycare. And we're also going to talk about daycare options in a home daycare. And then lastly, we're going to talk about what a lot of people end up going with, which is family care. So we've got a couple options here today that we're going to talk about. And at the end of the day, whatever you choose to do for your family, you're choosing to do what's best for you. Just because you're choosing to do something doesn't mean that it's the best option for somebody else. And just because somebody else chooses something doesn't mean it's the best option for you. So I really urge you to sit down with the people in your family, especially, a partner, if you're going through all of this together, and kind of discuss what your financials are looking like, what you guys are hoping for, and what your goal out of this childcare is. If you are pregnant and listening and you're thinking about looking into daycares, specifically daycares, I guess, I would definitely dive into it now. Back when I was managing a daycare, I was working, I've worked at two daycares. The first was a large corporate company called Bright Horizons. They were very, very lovely. I was an infant teacher with them. And then I moved over to another daycare where I was a lead infant teacher. And then I was promoted to program manager. So I was assisting a couple others on our management team to oversee a daycare of over 240 children a day. We had 18 classrooms from infancy all the way through pre-K. So I have had a bit of experience in a couple different realms when it comes to daycare. And I can tell you as a manager, I was doing a lot of the tours. That was kind of my realm. And in doing so, I would see people coming in at barely pregnant, people coming in at super pregnant, people coming in with their newborn or their toddler looking for support. And it definitely was tricky. As I'm sure people listening who have looked into daycares, the wait lists are absurdly long. And they're crazy because the wait lists are already existing for babies that are barely being pregnant with. So it's definitely tricky if you're thinking about going that route. Definitely start getting your name on some wait lists, do some tours. It's not abnormal for people to do tours and get on wait lists super early. So I suggest doing that. So since we're kind of on the daycare topic, let's dive into that. So option one is really this basic daycare idea, right? There are many corporate companies. Like I said, I worked for large companies, I should say. I worked for a Bright Horizons. It's a pretty known name around. There's also companies like Little Sprouts, or Kindercare, or Primrose, or there's many Montessori schools as well. Montessori schools is more of a teaching style rather than a, school name, but it's definitely out there, and you can, I'm sure, find some type of a Montessori school near you as well. So working in these kinds of settings are great because a lot of the time they do have a corporate associated with them, which means that they have some sort of teaching method or curriculum or standards that they are required to meet as a branch of this large company. So, for example, when I worked at Bright Horizons, and very similarly like that, I've heard from people who've worked for other large companies, there is specific curriculum, things that you have to hit on and accomplish each month. There are expectations for employees as well as for the families that are coming in. And things are pretty much into a systematic routine. Now, I will say that the education with that can be really great because there are these expectations. However, sometimes families do feel as though companies like this often feel very transactional. So because you are, sending your child to the center, and a lot of them end up being pretty large, some people end up feeling like you're kind of just another one on the roster. Whereas if you go with another choice, like we'll talk about here in a second, home daycares or nannies or things like that, families sometimes then feel as though they're more individualized, I guess you could say. So that's something to keep in mind with. Now, when we're talking about daycares, let's dive into a little bit about what you should ask, what you should look for. Some of the things that you should look into or just to think about when looking at daycares is asking them if they provide food, if they have a kitchen, if they're doing your laundry. I always suggest, even if you're looking at their infant program specifically or their toddler program, to ask to see the whole school. You want to go in, you want to tour, you want to see how the children are interacting with teachers and vice versa. You want to be able to see where your child will grow up and what programs they're going to go through. So even if you're pregnant and you're just looking at infant programs right now, still take the chance to walk around, see the toddler through pre-K programs, learn their curriculum, ask questions, because at the end of the day, if you're going to go down the daycare route, you really want to find somewhere that you can truly enjoy all the way through pre-K and not have to be jumping around daycares. When it comes to infant programs, you can ask them a lot about their sleeping situation, how they practice safe sleep. You can ask them if they have a crib room. You can ask them how they follow schedules and routines of little ones. A lot of times you're going to want to ask about the center's hours and sick policies, especially if you are going into work. You want to ask about what happens if you pick up late. You want to ask about sicknesses, like I said, because oh my gosh, those sicknesses and those little tiny babies' immune systems have to really catch a few colds before they're able to truly fight them off. So in the first few months, I often find new kiddos that were not exposed to germs at home end up getting sent home a handful of times with little sicknesses that they are not able to return with. So that's something else to ask. And then, like I said, walk around the whole building, get to know their whole program, ask about curriculum, ask about potty training practices, ask about outside schedules, ask about nap times and what they do if your child doesn't nap. You really want to ask all of these types of questions so that you can make sure you're making the best choice for your family. So then before I start diving too deep into that one topic, let's jump over to home daycares. Because like I said, I'm trying to keep this episode short, but as of right now, I'm already talking too much. So home daycares are daycares that are in the home. People have to be licensed by the state. So that's a very, very important question you want to ask. You want to ask them if they're licensed through the state, you want to ask them what their ratios are according to the state. Every state's going to be a little bit different. I could tell you about Massachusetts, but I know I have listeners from all over the place. So you can definitely Google it, look into your own programs, or call some local daycares, and they'd be happy to give you those ratios, I'm sure. So home daycares are a bit different because oftentimes age brackets are all mixed together. So they have to be licensed. The woman or person, I should say, that is running the program has to be a certified teacher in most states. And then they may have an assistant that does not need to be certified, but they cannot be left alone with the children without a certified individual present. In home daycares, like I said, we are mixed in age brackets. Okay. So you have oftentimes a certain amount of infants that can be in there, a certain amount of toddlers in preschool, and then a certain amount of school-age children. This is great because there is the opportunity for children to kind of learn from one another and interact with one another, and it's a great socialization option. However, it does get a bit tricky when you are doing such large age brackets because it's a home daycare, so it's very similar to if they would be treated like they would if they were siblings in a home together, right? So older children may be asked to play independently while an infant is being put to sleep. Or, sleeping infants might be brought outside or baby born in order to get the toddlers and the older children their time outside. Things like this are going to be different in a home daycare where you have an age range and you have one or maybe two teaching individuals. So that's something to keep in mind. With home daycares, you definitely want to ask about what their ratios are, ask about what their curriculum is like, ask how they handle situations when multiple children of different ages may need their attention. Especially if you're talking about your infant, you can ask about where they're going to be napping and how their routine will be followed because there will only be a teacher or two and there are a lot of other aged children. If you're having an older child go into daycare, you can ask about, what is my child going to be expected to do or asked to do when you may have to tend to other children in the room, things like that. I also like to say, talk to them about curriculum because you don't know what kind of things they're implementing. You want to ask them what standards they're following. Are they following the state standards? Are they creating their own curriculum? Do they have a child's care background so they know what's developmentally appropriate? And how are you meeting all of these diverse levels of, academics, right? What an infant is doing is not what a toddler is going to be doing or what a preschooler is going to be doing. So how are we offering age-appropriate activities to all children? That's a really great question. Yeah, so I also would mention to them and asking them about their holidays and their sick policies as well. A lot of the times home daycares will be open sometimes for holidays, other times they're not. Sometimes there are like a week or two in the middle of the summer that they'll take off because that's the only time they can truly have a vacation. And then asking about sick policies in relation to your child, but also in relation to the teacher. If you're sick or if they have children of their own that are in the program, if your children are sick or if you're sick, How do we go about daycare policies? Do we have uh, care still? How far ahead of time are we notified? Um, Things like that. And then also, are we expected to be paying if you're canceling school or if we're not able to come because of sickness or during the vacation week that they have scheduled and the daycare is closed? Are you expected to be paying? So there's tons of other questions that you could think about when it comes to daycares and home daycares that are a bit more specific to each family. You can definitely send me a message and I'm happy to chat with you. So let's jump over to nannies. Um, Nannies are great. There is a large difference between a babysitter and a nanny. Okay, so we want to say that a babysitter is somebody who does not have much experience. They're truly just taking care of your child. They're making sure your child's alive. Um, they're making sure your child is fed. They aren't doing anything in relation to house management. They aren't doing anything educational in a way with your child. They're truly following your child's lead, playing with them, and keeping them, happy. A nanny, on the other hand, is going to be doing a lot more, and a nanny is often somebody who is present in your child's life for an extended period of time during the week or years. So a nanny is going to be creating developmentally appropriate activities, going to be taking your child out and about in the world, going to be helping with maybe sleep training or introducing solids to your baby. They have experience and understanding of, what our milestones we're trying to reach. They may or may not be, depending on what you're looking for, doing house tasks like grocery shopping for you. They might be doing laundry. They might be cleaning when the baby is asleep. There's many things that a nanny would be doing during that time. Now, there's also something called a nanny share. So, a nanny share is a great option for families that want the benefit of having a nanny because they want their child at home. They want their child learning specifically. They don't want that transactional kind of feeling, like I mentioned, when it comes to daycares occasionally. However, nannies can often be more expensive. So, pulled from Google, in relation to Massachusetts, the average daycare for an infant in Massachusetts per month is $1,743. To be honest with you, that's pretty much on the lower side from what I expect, from what I'm used to. Many daycares that I'm looking at for infants, full time Monday through Friday, is typically over $500 a week. And then it will drop down bit by bit through the years as the ratios get larger, with pre-Kers being at about 3 to 350 a week. So that's in Massachusetts. We do have a lot higher rates. So take that in mind. But in comparison, again, in Massachusetts, according to care.com, the average rate for a nanny is anywhere between $21 and $30 an hour. According to ZipRecruiter, the average nanny rates nationwide is $21 to $35 an hour. Now, 21 to 30 an hour for Massachusetts for a nanny sounds very, very low. Again, to me, the nannies that I know are getting paid at least 35, upwards of $50 an hour. But it really, really depends on their experience, their education, and then also your expectations of what they're doing in your house. So, I also like to add with nannies, a lot of the time it is expected to be on the books. Some will do this off the books, so that's something that you need to talk to your nanny about. However, being on the books, doing things that include paid time off, sick time, benefits, 401k, things like that, are very, very typical for a nanny. So a lot of people would love to have a nanny. They like to have the benefit of it, but they're worried about either the pay being too much for them to handle or for their child to not have the socialization. The first thing that I would say about socialization is that if you have a nanny who knows what she's doing, she will demand that, or keep saying she because everybody that I've talked to about this whole topic has been females, but I guess you could have a male or any type of person watching your child. So I should say, they will be knowing and pretty much demanding that they have access to driving your child around, whether it be in their own car or in your car, which again is another expense that a lot of nannies are asked their families to cover, is mileage or cars or things like that. However, they'll be asking for that for the fact that they want to socialize your child, right? Nobody wants to be stuck in the house all day, nor should they be. A good nanny is taking your kid out of the house at least once a day in some way or another, going to a free activity at the library or a meetup, will be interacting with other nanny families or stay-at-home parents who have children, going to the park, going to the zoo, a museum, even with infants, getting them out and about, going for a walk, things like that, a stroller stride group are all very, very typical things for a nanny to do. Now, you are interested in having a nanny, but the rates are too high and you want more constant socialization, or maybe you have a family member or a friend who had a baby around the same time and you're both struggling to find daycare. That's where the nanny share comes in. A nanny share is essentially a person who comes into a home and watches multiple children from different families. Very typically, this is, two children. They can be the same age. They can often be different ages. So say you have an infant and your sister has a toddler and you're both looking for childcare. Great. Some nannies love doing nanny shares, some don't. Some that do nanny shares love working with children of different ages and will not work with like two infants at the same age or around the same age, because that is a lot. But that's definitely up to the nanny. So definitely chat with them if you are interested in doing that. A nanny share nanny typically gets paid anywhere around, I would say, about 1.5 times her typical pay. So, for example, if your nanny is getting paid $30 an hour to just work with you, they're going to be expecting $45 an hour to do a nanny share with your two families. Now, that is a lot of money. However, you're now splitting that between two families. So you don't end up actually paying $30 an hour. You're ending up paying less than that per family. Now, one of the things you do need to think about when you're hiring a nanny is, again, figuring out sick time. If they're sick, if you're sick, what are they comfortable doing? Some nannies that are working with only one family are okay coming and being with your child when they are sick. If your nanny is watching other children or babysitting on the side, or is only with you part-time, a lot of the times they will request only coming if it's some type of a sniffle or thing like that. If it's any type of contagious cold or sickness, they will not come because they don't want to transfer germs from family to family, which is pretty respectable in the fact that you don't want them bringing germs to your house from another family. That goes for nannies, for nanny shares as well. I typically will state that nanny shares are typically families that know each other or have found each other and then interview nannies together. I rarely find a nanny that has one family already and is looking for another to add to the nanny share. There are nanny share families, in a way, kind of a nanny share, that are stay-at-home parents or parents that have their own children now and used to be nannies that want to bring their child with them. A lot of the times that will lower the average rate of what they're getting paid. So that's a great option to be looking for as well, if you're open to a nanny bringing her child with them to your house. With a nanny share, the other thing that I wanted to mention is if you are working with another family, it is expected that they're in the same house. So whether that be that they're in house A all the time or they split time between house A and house B, the families are expected to be in the same home. Some nannies will drive the children, so they may go pick one child up and bring them to the other house for the day or vice versa. Some parents will drop off. It really depends on the situation. So that's the great thing about a nanny or a nanny share, is that you can adjust the schedule and the life to be what it is that you're looking for. And you can be more picky about who you're looking for, because there are a lot of options out there, and you can truly kind of fit your needs to, like, your nanny to be whatever your needs are. And then the last option I wanted to mention is family childcare. So family child care is the idea that a lot of people have where, whether they're going to plan to do this long term or it's just a short term opportunity while they're waiting for a nanny to be hired on or waiting on a wait list of a daycare. It's the idea that an in-law, a family member of some type is going to be watching your child in your home. Now, this is a topic that has such a sliding situation in and of itself. A lot of families are very close. Like, I'm going to use in-laws as an example. A lot of families are very close to their in-laws, and their in-laws are very understanding of their new parenting style and are very supportive and will truly support in whatever way the family is trying to raise the child because they get along really well. And a lot of in-laws have a hard time doing that. The world of children has evolved immensely, generation to generation, and even more so child to child, things are changing and evolving every day. And so a lot of the time, in-laws in particular, or, parents in particular, grandparents, are struggling to understand the parenting and the way that we're raising our children nowadays because a lot of things have changed. I've heard from many families, parents and in-laws and grandparents all saying things along the lines of, oh, well, my kid slept with a blanket. Oh, well, my kid did so much better when we put XYZ in their bottle, or when we fed them this way, or if we did this for them. There's many things, specifically car seat safety, and paced bottle feeding and safe sleep, that has changed drastically. And we now have studies to prove that, but it's very easy for grandparents to jump to the idea, or parents in general, family in general, to jump to the, well, I did it this way and they were fine, because they were, right? But now we have more information. And so it can make family care a bit of a struggle if that's the kind of situation that you have. In those cases, when I am talking with my postpartum or my sleep clients, I'm often telling them to throw me under the bus at all costs. Gosh, I can't talk this morning. So if your family member is like, oh, well, I did this, this, and this, I quickly tell them to jump and throw me under, right? My postpartum doula, my sleep consultant, actually told me that this is the data and this is what we're following. And if they're not able to, I'm happy to chat with them. So if you are going back to work, going to wherever you're going, and you are having family care for your child and you're stressed about that point, feel free to reach out. I'm happy to schedule a call where I can offer a sample schedule for your child to follow that could help with family taking care of your child, but also help and chat with whoever's taking care of your child to make sure that they're understanding the safety precautions and respecting your family's wishes. I'm happy to be the bad guy so that you guys don't have to make waves in your family, because at the end of the day, you're going to be seeing them, right? So it's very important to try to keep, as much peace as we can if we have the opportunity to do so. So those are kind of all the childcare options that I wanted to go over today. I hope that I didn't ramble on too long here. But if anybody has any questions about those options or other options, there's plenty of others like au pairs and other types of childcare as well. But I wanted to talk about those few today because they are the most common. Like I said, if you are interested in more information, please feel free to reach out. I'm more than happy to discuss childcare with anybody who is looking for some support, and would be happy to get you more questions to ask daycares or help you build a schedule so that your little one is all set for when you go back to work. And I hope that you guys all enjoyed the episode, and I will see you all soon. Thank you so much for tuning into the Postpartum Plan podcast. I hope that today's episode brought you support, relatability, and valuable insight. Remember, you're not alone on this journey. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe and leave a review and share with any of your prenatal and postpartum friends and family. Your feedback helps us reach more parents seeking support. And if you're looking for additional resources, please feel free to connect via Instagram at Serene Moments Doula for constant information, tips, and tricks, or check out my website, www.serenemomentsdoula.com. See you next week.